dark, and I circled around one turn and was going to head for the airport. It was a mile away from town. And all of a sudden, the guy, Hank, in the back seat said, "Our belly's on fire." And I said, "Oh, for crying out loud." And I started letting down. And I looked back and I could see right through to the floor, and underneath it, the whole fuselage was afire. And we were about 400 feet up then. And so I was diving for the ground, and the thing just went, and finally there was a kind of an explosion under there. And then I couldn't see no more out of the airplane, but I got on the instruments and tried to hold the same turn I had for line up with the runway, and I hollered back at Hank. I says, "Get your belt unhooked and get ready to jump out." I said, "I'm going to just put it on the ground, and when we hit the ground, just bail out. If you get broke up, we'll be better than dying." And so, anyway, and then by then there was so many flames and smoke inside the cabin that I had a big wood sleeping bag for a seat cushion and emergency gear, and he grabbed that and wrapped himself up in it. And then, but I couldn't do that, so I'm up there trying to fly the airplane, and then I couldn't see out no more. And all of a sudden, I could see the wings the frame of the wings starting to appear with flames all over them. And we were down to 300 feet, and the wings were completely burned off. And so we just fell for 300 feet into the trees. And when we hit the trees, well, luckily I was loaded tail heavy, so the nose didn't drop in. It fell flat. And when it hit the trees this way, it hit a big tree on the right side and swung the airplane sideways to the trees. And then it went down through the trees sideways and broke off a bunch of little trees and stuff. And then hit the ground and sheared the landing gear off. And then came to a stop. And then that took up a lot more of the shock. And but there was fire every place, So anyway, I was up in the windshield when we ended up, because I didn't have my belt on. He didn't have a belt on either, but he just went up against the back seats and wrapped up in that sleeping bag. He got one cut on the side of his head from a board, sliding down a board. And then when I went into the windshield and slid down the windshield with my face, and I hit the panel, and it's shaped like this. And when I hit right on the top of it, I hit right on this side, and it snipped my nose right down to my face, right below the cartilage, and my nose was hanging in my mouth, the end of my nose. And then this cut went right up around my eye like this, just the shape of that instrument panel. And then it about half scalped me, but it just laid the scalp over a little bit. But I was still alive, and I didn't know why, because I knew we were dead, when that happened. And so I tried to break the windshield out, but I couldn't break it. It was made out of safety plate, and I couldn't break it with my fist with a mitt on it. But see, we were dressed for cold weather too. We had parkas on, and big mitts, and boots and everything, and flying pants, because it was cold in that airplane in the winter. Didn't have a very good heater. And so we always dressed good when we flew it. And so anyway, I thought, well, I'll have to, and see, you were sitting in the pilot seat, and then the door was back over here around. You had to go through a little aisle here, the co-pilot seat over here. And you had to go through around this way to get out the door. And so I just jumped out of the seat and ran around that seat and was going to just push my shoulder against the door. And I didn't know the landing gear was ripped off. And to this day, I thought it was still on, and I was walking, but I wasn't. I was crawling. And I went right out on the ground. The door was gone off of the airplane. And so I'm hollering for Hank in there, and he doesn't answer. So I I go back and feel around, it's just flames are going every place and smoke. And I was feeling for him in there and I felt his hand. And so I just yanked him out of the airplane. And then onto the ground, then we started to run away from the airplane. And I got about to the end of where the wing should be, and I passed out. And then he grabbed me and dragged me on out of the way of the fire, you know. And so anyway, the thing burned up pretty good, and the fire department came out, but they're a little ways off the road, and they had nothing to fight the fire with except some snow. But luckily they brought some snow shovels with them, and they shoveled snow on the fire, and they got it out. But when it hit it, the tanks never did blow up. It went by, that fire went out there so fast. This airplane had that old dope on, they called nitrate dope. And it's just like a powder keg. You light it on fire and there ain't no stopping it. And it'll strip an airplane off in 2 minutes.